Kate and Bhaavya, so welcome back. It's great to see you.
Lovely to be back.
Yeah, we had to do the fizz test and everything.
Yeah, we were just setting up, getting ready.
It's all the technical stuff, right?
Yeah.
We also have Grace and Hope from Year 12 here, so welcome to your first ever podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Right, we'll crack on. We've got 20 minutes, and then we're going to throw open to the audience some questions. I presume most of them will be for Claire. You may want to kind of...
I wouldn't presume that at all.
Let's see how it goes. First question, let's get the big one out of the way. Claire, what's it like being on Gogglebox?
Well, funny enough, a bit like all of you sat there in those nice sofas, Alice and I we record Gogglebox at home on our sofa. Most of the questions we get asked via social media are, what's the name of the paint on our walls? Because it's not that far off what you've got on the back wall here. It's all the rage, apparently. Actually, it's more like the darker grey down the bottom. It's really fun. You don't have to watch the whole programme. They wheel in a television set, and it's preloaded with clips. Don't tell anyone I told you that. But the best bit is they give you a hamper, and you can ask for things in the hamper. So I like popcorn, so I want popcorn. But Alice likes Galaxy chocolate, not Cadbury's, so she asked specifically for Galaxy chocolate. I know.
Wow. How can you apply to become on Gogglebox, just out of interest? Just from chocolate perspective.
Oh, I see. Well, I should think you can, yeah.
We'll give it a go.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Firstly, really, to yourself over there, Bhaavya and Kate, 2 yees since you've left.
2 years.
I remember you being kind of really strong individuals.
Oh.
And I've been working in independent education for 13, 14 years. And you, including the podcast group that we worked with, helped me understand what all-girls education was all about. You were the end product of that system. So
thank you.
Very sweet.
It meant a lot to us to be able to do the podcast. I mean, our last episode, I still think about that all the time. It was emotional. It was incredible. Just the absolute summit of the experience. It was just wonderful.
it was good fun.
Yeah.
So 2 years on, how's it been? How's it going?
I can't believe it's been 2 years.
Yeah, it never feels like it. When you come back to the Abbey, there's such an experience. I mean, you've been here even longer than me. You've been here your whole life.
Since pre-nursery.
It feels like you've never left. There's something about this school that just, it's the people always as well. And just, you feel such a connection knowing that, I mean, for me in Nottingham, there's quite a few of the Abbey students who are there and I get to see them and there's that connection. You feel grounded in it, really.
And it's like seeing all the old teachers that we've had to catch up with downstairs. Oh, it just brings it all back. Because in Southampton, I see a couple people and I'm like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of that girl that I went to school with, or that reminds me of that teacher that I had that one time. And it always just comes back.
They're such core memories.
Literally.
And, we've moved on. We're living university life, loving it now. I think those first few steps can be really daunting.
Very tough.
Going from sixth form, it's quite a closed, intimate experience, but the skills that this school gives you prepare you so much for university, more than just going to a larger school, I would say.
Can I ask, are either of you doing any broadcasting now at university?
No, but I thought about it. I didn't quite get into it.
Can I just raise here? We actually gave them podcast mics as they left.
They gave us mics.
Have they been
Do you know
used?
what? Not yet, but what we should do is we should do another guest episode.
Yeah.
I think postcard from afar, as it were, and you send back in a little voice note.
That would be brilliant. Yeah, we could do that.
Good.
It's sitting in my room. Yeah. I can see it every day.
Right, we're going to do that, right?
Just waiting for the day. Let's
Okay.
put it on the bucket list. We'll take it off.
You're all from an all-girls education, okay? What's it given you as individuals, do you think? I mean, we've heard some words today which are really strong: kindness, resilience, courage. How do you feel your experience, particularly at the Abbey, has been, and how wider for all five of you?
I think it's like that confidence that going to an all-girls school gives you to kind of speak out and speak your mind, which is so different to in a lot of other schools, because there's no judgment and we can all stand up and you can come to school in pyjamas with messy hair and no makeup no one cares. Pretty much, yes.
No, they wouldn't let us do that at my school.
I've seen people in onesies.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, respect. It's good. It's the self-expression.
Yeah. Definitely.
I remember reflecting in like the last few weeks when you're in sixth form and you're like, God, I'm going to leave this place and I love it here.
Yeah.
But thinking mainly about you're sat in the sixth form centre at lunchtime and you're just surrounded by this girlhood, this connection all together, and when am I ever going to have that again in my life? You know, you go out into the world and it's a mixed community, and that's great in its own sense. But to have that sisterhood together all the time, exactly like Grace said, not feeling judged, you can just do anything, be anything, and it sets you up for in the world. If anyone would say you can't do that, you know, yes, I can.
Yeah, and you find those like gems that you met during school in people in university. There's so many like overlapping similarities and like recurring characters, as people would say. And that just gives you again like the reassurance and like the confidence, and you feel comfortable. You're like, I've had this experience before, and this person is reminding me so much of that experience that I learned so much from. So that means I can do it, and I can learn from it even more, and I can go out in the world and do whatever I want to do.
Okay, obviously resilience is a key thing, right? Learning that things don't always go in straight lines. And you spoke earlier, Claire, about your journey to try and get into English, into university. Was broadcasting always a plan?
No, not at all. I wanted to write, and I wanted to change the world through what I wrote. And I think everyone at your age should want to change the world, or at least, as David Nichols sort of says in One Day, change the world around you, that you can affect that sort of 10-mile or 10-metre radius, but 10 miles, I like to think, around you. And that can have a big impact if we're all trying to do it. I started writing. I wrote for various newspapers on subjects that I already knew about, so quite narrow. And then I got a chance to go and do a voice test for radio, and there was a new radio station starting called 5 Live. And I got a job there as a trainee in BBC Radio Sport. Now, my voice has got more bass notes now, and all female voices get more bass notes as you get older. So if you heard a recording of me when I was 20, I sounded a lot higher pitched. What helps you with bass notes is if you're commentating and you get very excited and your voice is going to go up and somebody's serving for the championship at Wimbledon, let's say, and she's hit a winner, you can do it without losing your voice completely. As it happens, I don't do an awful lot of commentary. I have done in tennis and I have done in golf, actually, which is quite fun, because you get to whisper around the because you have to, and you put your clipboard up in front of your mouth so that the players can't hear you. It's very exciting, yes. And then you suddenly you raise your voice. But think about this. Think about the range that singers have. In the old days, they used to think women couldn't read the news because their voices didn't have enough authority. And one of the reasons was that a voice with bass notes in it was considered to have authority. It's why Margaret Thatcher changed the way she spoke. If you listen to the late Queen, she spoke very differently, sort of post-1988 than she did before. And part of that is the natural development of your voice, but also part of it was voice coaching. Get really familiar with how your voice sounds. And if you've done podcasts, you will be, because you'll have listened back. Listen to yourself. And think about, how can I express this with more energy? How can I get my message across? How can I make people listen? And sometimes you do exactly what I just did there. You leave a silence. You don't have to tell people to be quiet. You leave a silence. They'll all go, what's she going to say? What's she about to say? I'm listening. They'll lean in. They'll lean into the speaker. And that's one of the things that getting that chance in broadcasting helped me really think about my voice and my language, my vocabulary, all those things that matter as well. And then I went into television, and then everybody just worries about what you look like. You know.
Grace, Hope, you're obviously on this journey. You know, you're first year into sixth form. What are your ambitions? What are your hopes for the future?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I feel like when I was younger, I had this like big dream. I was like, well, I was in year 7. I was like, I want to be really rich. But as I've like grown up, I think I've realised that I don't like, because now I think I really want to go to performing arts school for a year, because I've realised that that's something I really do enjoy. And I think I do regret like not taking drama in sixth form a little bit. And I realised that like that's where like my heart lies a little bit. But then I also really like school, and I really like doing like academic subjects. So I think I want to go to performing arts school for at least a year, and then decide whether I want to go to university, maybe do like history and economics, and do something, a degree that I feel like I can take into something like a bit more important to the world than just being really rich.
For the video project, I remember working with you, and you did a project on ethical banking, which was ensuring that we or the banking industry support ethical ventures. And I thought that was an extraordinary project. I really did. I think that was an amazing thing to demonstrate and to showcase to the students. So, and you've also been in Cruella, which is quite impressive. So, what about you, Grace?
Well, I really enjoy history and English and drama. Those are the 3 subjects I take at A-level. And so I'd love to go into university and continue to study that, doing kind of history and English as a mix. But after that, I think I'd like to go into law, because it's so important to use the voice that you've got. And I love public speaking so much. I do loads of debates, public speaking. We've got European Youth Parliament next week coming to the school. So I think using your voice and using your education to change the world, as you said, is so important. And I think doing that through law and advocacy is a really good route for me.
A slight segue, but on the same lines as continuing with change. Now, a subject quite close to your heart, Claire, sport and the development of female sport. Why has it taken so long to get female sport coverage to the level it is now? And has it had to take a success, i.e. a European Championship for the Lionesses, to get to that point?
It's really interesting. If you study the history of women's football in particular, and I made a documentary about it called When the FA Banned Football, or what was it called? Sorry. It was called When Football Banned Women. And it was all around the timing of the suffrage movement, and it was to do with politics and the fear of women being seen as powerful and strong and having crowds coming to watch them, but also they feared that women would vote en bloc. They made the classic error of thinking we all think the same. And they didn't trust, particularly in the Northwest, working class women were the ones playing football. A lot of the munitions factories had set up football teams, and the Dick Kerr ladies, who were based in Preston, were the most famous of them all. And they were getting massive crowds. They were getting 56, 57, 60,000 people coming to watch their matches. And it scared the establishment based in London. They didn't understand it, and I think the FA were very scared it would have a negative impact on men's football, which was growing. And that ban lasted for 50 years. It's extraordinary. And so it's been quite a battle for girls to be allowed to play football in school, for parents to think of it as a career option, because it just wasn't, and to be able to give it that investment of time. And the combination, what matters in women's sport and what matters generally in life, is the combination of respect and reward. Because if you're looking at career options that don't have either of those things, you're not going to do them. And women's football had neither of those things. It wasn't respected and it certainly wasn't rewarded. The investment that's now there means at least it is a career option, but the massive impact has been the change of attitude. That people talk about it, they talk about players, they want to go and watch it. It's a very different, and I would argue much better experience than going to watch men's football. For one thing, you're not going to hear homophobic, racist and anti-Semitic language, and there's a plus. That you can actually enjoy yourself. And it's a really great product. It's incredibly skillful and fast, and as we know, the England team in particular have had, international success, and that matters, that breaks through. But also some of the tribal friction that men's football historically carries with it doesn't exist in women's football. You could have an England-Scotland international every month in women's football and you wouldn't need any police presence. You can't even have it in men's football. And I think that is tragic, actually, for men's football. But they don't see the issues, they just see the money it makes. They go, oh, look at the Premier League, it's, the most valuable commodity in the world, which arguably it is. But I believe in the power of sport to change attitudes, and I've presented the Paralympics for a long, long time. And again, I think it has a massive impact outside the field of play, and that's something I'll talk about a little bit later on. But it's thinking. I love thinking about sport in the context of history, geography, economics, that it's part of everything. And I sat next to somebody who works for the Treasury the other night, and he said to me, I hate sport. I said, nice to meet you too. But he's not the first civil servant that said that to me. And I said, can I ask you a personal question? I said, was sport the one thing at school that made you feel stupid? And he said, yes. because he wasn't included, because he couldn't kick a ball and he couldn't catch a ball, and he couldn't therefore be in the teams. And I think that's a real fault of the way we think about teaching sport, because I think everyone should be included, because sport is not just about the players on the pitch, it's about the business around it, it's about transport, it's about nutrition, it's about mental health. Getting the best out of people is something that we all should be able to contribute to. So I think named on the team sheet shouldn't just be the players, it should be everybody else, and roles for them that are really appreciated. Because if you do play sport at a professional level, it's way more than just your teammates that you need.
Yeah, and also for females now to have the role models to look up to. A quiz question for us now. How many sporting statues are there in the UK, and how many of them are female?
Don't look at me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's my area of expertise, but I'm going to hazard a guess, very few.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you the answer to the first bit. There's 240 sporting statues in the UK.
Is one of a woman? Is there one of Lily Parr?
Lily Parr is one of them.
Oh, is there a second one?
There we go. There's actually only three females who have statues of them.
Oh, no, actually there's more than that, because they've got the British winners of Wimbledon outside Centre Court.
Do they?
Yeah. So the women who have won Wimbledon.
Gotcha.
Most recently, Virginia Wade, but they've got those statues. So Kitty Godfrey, Anne Mortimer.
Virginia Wade would have been?
Yeah, Virginia Wade's the most recent of them, of the women.
Still very poor.
Yes.
Very poor.
Sorry, so who were the other two in outside tennis?
I had to write them down.
Right.
Mary Peters.
Yeah.
And Dorothy Round, former tennis player. But Lily Parr was the one who was a forerunner of female football. You know, she was scored 1,000 goals.
Yeah.
And as you say, attracting crowds of 50, 60,000.
Lily Parr, a male goalkeeper once made the mistake of saying to Lily Parr, I can save any shot of yours. So she stood up there, she scored the first two, he got unarmed to the third, and it broke his arm. Cracking story, that, isn't it?
And none of the statues of women, are any of them of like traditionally female sports, or is it all tennis and football?
Tennis, football and athletics. They're the three statues that I referred to, obviously. Claire's mentioned.
You'd expect like netball or hockey to be up there. If it's statues of women, those are the sports, you know, that tend to be typically female.
And also, well, are played at school. And netball, I think you're absolutely right to identify netball. I might be 5 years ahead of the curve here, but I'm telling you, netball will be the big breakthrough women's sport in the next few years, I think, because it can be played any time of year. It can be played any time, day or night. It's an urban sport. It's not, and therefore it's not dependent upon having land or having access to outside space. And a lot of the sports that have traditionally been acceptable for women have been dependent on having money. So to go back to your point of being very, very rich, what being very, very rich does is give you power. It gives you the power to say no to things, but also it gives you the power to not have to rely on other people to pay you to do it. And that's why in sailing and equestrian sport, women have always done it at the same level and been, you know, never been denied from doing it, but because they can finance it themselves. So it's a class thing as well. And that's, you know, the football thing's so interesting because that's class war as well as a gender war.
Very much so. Would you believe 20 minutes has rattled through so quickly, right? So we're going to throw it open to the floor. If you have any questions for not any one of us, anyone will ask me anything, but if you've got any questions, maybe particularly for Claire, please put your hand up and we'll take them now. Thank you. Front row.
I do think you should do something about it. And I think if your daughter wants to be doing triple jump, she should be given that opportunity. It's not about making her do something she doesn't want to do. She wants to do it, I assume. And she doesn't anymore because no other girls are doing it. And that you see then where dreams are crushed really early on, because you kind of need people around you. And particularly if you're starting something that's technically very difficult, as triple jump is. I always wonder about pole vault. Sorry, random thought here. How do you do your first pole vault? That is really hard, right? Yeah. How are you doing your first ever pole vault? But your first triple jump, you're going to, you can't get it right first time. It's really hard to do. So you need people around you that are also learning and that are prepared to, make mistakes. And that's part of it. But I think the very simple question is, can I ask you, if my daughter was a boy, would she be allowed to do this? Because if not, I think you need to look at your own setup. You say it to the school and just, I'm a bit concerned here because it's now past the point of opportunity for her because she doesn't want to do it anymore, but I don't want girls of the future to go through this. Yeah, there are lots of times in the world where the opportunity is not equal. They think it is, but it's not.
Thank you. Any more questions? If not, I've got a couple. Sorry, hand up there, sorry.
My first broadcasting experience, so I was offered this voice test. I went into a studio at the BBC. They recorded me reading something I'd written. So I wrote a report on a sporting event. I read it. And then actually they really helped me going through how I sounded, how to create, sort of almost thinking of your voice as musical notes, of how to create music that works, so you're not all monotone. When I went on the air, I was terrified until the moment the red light went on. So with both television and radio, you see a red light, either on the camera or in a studio. And it was really weird. My background is equestrian, right? I used to ride eventing and show jumping, but riding in races. And I used to get very, very nervous up to the point that I got on the horse. And because I knew that I had to be calm, because otherwise the horse would be panicked, I calmed down. Same thing happens when the red light went on. I just was, I can do this, I've got this. Didn't mean I sounded great, because I didn't. Didn't mean I didn't make mistakes, because I did. But you sort of learn to ride with it, and that you can put yourself right. You know, you can't read perfectly every time, and you can't write perfectly every time. And if you're not even writing, you certainly can't just speak free, freestyle, as it were, and get it right. But you learn to kind of navigate round.
Anyone else for a question? I did see another hand. There was another hand? Oh, yeah, there you go.
No, I hadn't considered it, because at the time when I started, there was only one other female voice on sport, and that was Eleanor Oldroyd, who's the most brilliant broadcaster, still doing it now. She used to hate the fact that I said that I listened to her on Newsbeat. She used to work for Radio 1, and I used to listen to her on Newsbeat when I was at school. She didn't like me saying that. Anyway, she was really helpful and very supportive. And now, obviously, there are hundreds of female voices and indeed faces that you will see and hear doing sport. So that was, it's way more, again, the respect reward thing. It's much more acceptable now to want to go into sport. And there are more opportunities, way more channels. But no, it wasn't something I considered, because I just didn't think I could. I just didn't think. I was, I nearly went into advertising. And I really like thinking about, lots of what I do is with that kind of advertising head on or storytelling. How am I going to sell this event to people? How am I going to make them interested and make them want to engage with it? But no, it absolutely wasn't what I thought. The one thing I know I've always done is, if I've been asked, do you want to try this? I'll always say yes. And that's why I was asked, do you want to try this? Your voice might work. And I said yes.
Thank you. We've got a couple of minutes left. I've got a couple of very quick, random questions, if I may, Claire. Have you ever been starstruck by someone you've interviewed or met? Yes,
frequently. John McEnroe is quite intense, and he turns up about 10 seconds before you're about to go on air. literally 10 seconds before, and you think he's not coming, he's not, oh, he's here, right, so. Hi, John, hi, ready? Yep, ready. And off you go. And sometimes it's, if you meet somebody who's physically very imposing, so Anthony Joshua, for example, who's the most gentle, lovely man in the world, but if Anthony Joshua walks into a room, you know about it, you know? Tyson Fury, not so much, just because he's said things I don't agree with. So, I tend to get starstruck by people I really admire. Helen Mirren, but she's ended up being really cool, because we stayed up chatting until about 2 a.m. She's brilliant. Judi Dench isn't actually intimidating in that sense. She's really sweet.
Wow.
But I have a couple of tricks. One is, if you know they've got a dog, talk to them about their dog. Classic cut through. And the other is, if you know they like sport, talk to them about sport. Don't go up and say, God, you're so wonderful in your last role. I really loved it. They go, shut down. But if you say, oh, I know that you've got a dachshund. Tell me about Ingrid, your dachshund.
Good tactic.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good tactic. Final one, linked to sport and your love of horse racing, which I have a love of horse racing. Really random. Who's your favourite racehorse ever?
I have just got a really nice job as a consultant, because I need another job, but it is a nice extra. A consultant on a film that's been written about the life of Henry Cecil, and it's all tied in with the last years, and Frankel obviously was a huge part of that. And I was there through Frankel's career. I was presenting on the BBC, and we did the final day that he ever ran, and really the final day anyone saw Henry Cecil in public at Ascot.
Amazing.
So I would say Frankel for work purposes. My father trained a racehorse called Mill Reef, who won the Derby in 1971, and a stack of other good races. And he changed my life and my brother's life because his owner was so thrilled with what my dad had done and, you know, how wonderful Mill Reef was, that he set up a trust fund, and that paid for our education. So in terms of having an impact on me, that's the racehorse that made a difference.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Look, we've come to the end of the time. Normally we cut and eat a cake, but this celebration cake is almost too good to cut, I think. So we come to the stage of the programme now. It's photographed with a cake, I think. So I just want to say thank you, Kate, Bhaavya, Grace, Hope, and of course, Claire. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.